This podcast contains mature and adult themes and is not suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised.
We didn't have makeup at all. Boys didn't wear
Sadly.
makeup. Maybe a little bit of eyeliner if you were really pushy.
So when I was going out in my college and after days, when I was getting gay bashed in Hyderabad, I would go out with a full smoky eye. And I don't mean black. I would do green glitter, blue.
Where did
That's how they identified us in the streets,
How
I
did
guess.
that come to be?
I really liked wearing makeup.
And you were still living at home in those days?
Yeah, but we would get ready in my friend's house.
Of course.
And all
Like
of us
hookers
queens going
do,
out
yeah.
together. Yeah, then they pay.
Yeah. And you'd wear like a full green
Full,
glitter
like
smoky eye?
not even like a classic Rani Mukherjee or anything like that, shapely, almondy. No, it was just a round, just so that it's koala like, but cool and
Wow.
sparkly in the lights of the club.
So you made the transition quite quickly into being like pushing the envelope.
Yeah, second nature to me.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Queer Podcast, which we are titling Decoding the Self. We thought it would be fun to take a look at ourselves in a more external way, the ways in which we present ourselves to the world via fashion and self-expression, and how that has changed with time. So literally, we're going to gas about the whats and whys of our looks, perhaps what sets us apart externally. So with us is a man whose sense of style I really love, who has a great voice, a big heart, and who is so super talented with his art, which is makeup. Hello, makeup whiz Elton Fernandez.
Hello, Ashish and everybody listening.
So Elton is the maestro behind many, many fashion campaigns, and recently the artist behind creating iconic period looks for Aditi Rao Haidar in Jubilee, which were gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah, really beautiful. I first met Elton because the whole shtick of this podcast is that I'm the old queer who's struggling to come to terms with the new queer world. So you are the young queer, by the way, for this episode, right? So I met Elton actually when he was a wee gaby back in 2012 at Lakme Fashion Week. I was doing a bunch of videos for them and Elton was handling all the looks and it was love at first sight for
Nina
me.
Manuel, right?
Nina Manuel. And since then, of course, I've watched Elton grow in many, many ways. And it also, aside from all this, it's worth mentioning that Elton is someone who has always looked out for our own queer folks. And that makes my jaded heart swell. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here amidst your crazy schedule and chatting with us. Even before I actually thought of this episode properly, I just knew I wanted to do something on style and how we present ourselves as
Sure.
queer people with you. So thank you for saying yes.
Yes, absolutely.
So clearly the way we present ourselves to the world through what we wear, through how we look, what we do with the visible parts of our bodies, fashion, hairstyling, makeup, they kind of represent us and put out a message about who we are, right?
Yes.
Our dressing connects to social norms, which include gender and sexual identity. So my first question to you is, do you think the queers have their own fashion statement to make? And do we in some ways announce our identities to the world?
Yeah, I mean, like with everybody, our style introduces us before words do, or actions do. So in so much it's important. But for us, I think it's kind of like I know you're going to ask me about the queer aesthetic, and I feel like that's such an oxymoron in a way because it's like complying with what society is giving you within the lines, but you also have to push the borders outwards ever so often.
Right.
So like I may be wearing all white, which is quite okay for Labor Day, but I will have my eyeliner on or something, a bandana to spice it up.
In some way.
In some way, push the boundaries.
Okay. So interestingly, this I read a quote from a queer fashion activist and founder of the fashion incubator Q, where his name is Sonny Oram, and he says, fashion is just such an important part of who we are. That's the first time you tell someone, I'm not straight.
Yeah,
Yeah?
or that.
So do you reckon that wearing clothes that cross the binary is political in some way? Is that an act of like politics for you?
For me, it's very political. And in fact, I feel like without taking that stance or understanding the politics behind what we are saying and doing and what socio-political status is, you cannot get an agenda further than it already is.
Right.
To see it through, you have to be able to identify what's political about.
And wear it
all.
with pride, literally.
Yeah.
Okay, so Gen Z is the queerest generation yet, apparently.
I'd say, yeah.
A US-based Gallup poll said that nearly 1 in 6 respondents aged 18 to 23 identify as queer or transgender.
Amazing.
That's staggering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's mention of a queer aesthetic. Now we come to the queer aesthetic. What do you think is a queer aesthetic? How would you define that?
Anything that makes you take a second look and then a third, and you still don't know what to make of it.
So shaking up
it will confound you a little bit, I suppose.
So shaking up the order a little bit.
Yeah, and make you feel like, okay, the status quo is being threatened. It's like in some way you feel, there's something uncomfortable about this, but I don't know how to process it.
Do you like doing that? Do you
Yes. In fact, when I started working out, and I had a fair bit of muscle a couple of years ago, and I dress largely, my wardrobe is women's wardrobe, and then I'll make it a bit mask, But when I had all of this muscle, I realized I couldn't layer much. And I was starting to present the body in a way that was more mask. Because, your chati phel jata and it's more like this and all of that. Like your posture. But I didn't like that because I just missed that skinny waist and, thin arms that can take a shirt and a jacket on top and still look, you can
wavy,
control
and
your fashion. But I miss that because there's nothing more uncomfortable to my eyes than a man in supremely tight clothes.
Yeah.
Unless we're looking at just the lower half.
Yeah. I knew that was coming.
They usually do.
Yeah. So styling yourself through a queer lens is a signal to other queer people that I'm queer, right?
For me, it's more for myself and for maybe the people who are not queer.
Right.
Queer people will look at me, okay, there she is again.
Right.
But it's, the other ones that aren't expecting it.
What do you think of the whole unisex style trend, which is big now, isn't it?
I'm all for it because I think even though the heteros may finally be appropriating our culture at large, I think
interesting.
It is one can bring oneself to look at it from a lens of, oh, okay, at least they're catching on.
Right.
And at least it's progressing some of our culture and normalizing it. It may not be from the mouths that I want to hear it from, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Allies are allies.
Allies are allies. I have to say, Ranveer really comes up a lot, right?
Yeah.
In terms of...
Because he's so queer without being homo.
Yeah. And wears it with such pride.
Yeah, I like it. He's got a real panache about himself.
Absolutely.
And ballsy. And that's a queer identity, balls to the wall, gung-ho. We want to really beat our drum when we announce ourselves.
Right. Shake it up. I love that.
Yeah.
This also brings us to like the whole history of how queers have through time coded themselves in some ways. And often it was historically like a way that they actually informed other queer people that they were queer. Very subtle. So I was reading some signaling. So really interesting stuff actually. Coming out or being outed non-consensually is risky even today, but this was very dangerous decades ago, as you can imagine. So LGBTQ plus people relied on using coded phrases to come out to each other. So there were terms like family, a club member.
Dorothy's friend.
A friend of Dorothy's, yeah. Which is so bizarre. Like, where did that come from? Is it from Dorothy, like Wizard of Oz?
Wizard of Oz,
yeah,
right?
must be. And the word gay itself, I didn't know this, was one of those code words and was originally co-opted from a phrase that female sex workers used to refer to each other. And the gays grabbed it. The gay rights movement outed the word following the rebellion at Stonewall in 1969,
Right.
when I was born.
Right.
I'm glad you have such a dignified reaction to that. Most people are like, oh my God, you're my father's age.
Oh, I was going to say, but you stopped 69.
Okay, so back to coding, some historically interesting facts. In the 1890s, Oscar Wilde wore a green carnation
Yes.
to signal that he was gay, and that caught on apparently. In the 20s, it was lesbian women who popularized wearing men's trousers, still around. In the 70s, again, the women took to wearing androgynous baggy silhouettes aimed against the male gaze. So trends included bow ties and suit jackets. And the men during this era wore hankies, like we talked about. If you wore your hanky in your left pocket, you were a bottom, and if you wore it in your right pocket, you were a top. And this became more and more coded in terms of color as the LGBTQ sort of spectrum developed. So there was a rainbow code, and there were 10 colors, each of which signified a position or a fetish. So depending on what your mood
Hot.
was for that night, yeah. So the 80s saw men wearing the single earring in the right ear. That was when it all started. So earrings. Do you remember the earring trend?
Yes, if you wore it on your left ear or something, you were a gandu.
You were active.
Oh, like passive active.
Yeah. And if you wore it on your right ear, you were passive. And you wear it on both ears, I see.
Yes.
Then came keys. Hanging them on a chain on the left meant top, right meant bottom. Whatever that is. Then, now this is interesting, the women appropriated the beloved carabiner.
I don't know what that is.
It's a metal loop with a spring-loaded gate used to quickly and reversibly connect components, most notably in safety-critical systems.
Sure. Okay.
We have to ask the girls about this.
Sure.
Because it sounds very deep and meaningful, but I don't quite get it. Okay, so any stuff that comes to your mind from your own lived experience of while growing up queer, how you kind of slowly informed other people or coded yourself to other people? Because you couldn't have started like this.
Possibly, but I was born in 81 and we didn't have mobile phones growing up either.
Right. Or the internet.
Or a personal computer. I mean, you shared one landline with the whole damn family with parallel lines. You couldn't even give your phone number to people.
Right.
But I think the visceral way would be, in my day, perhaps wearing lenses or having like a really faggy haircut, printed kalamkari, pochampalli printed, textile shirts and with the big lapels and big collars and
Oh, that's right. You're from
things
Hyderabad.
like that. Yeah, so I enjoyed that textile. Or a lot of us coming out of college, we have that jhola vibe, you come with the jhola and the coat. What are those kolapuris and
the whole
linen
Indian,
pants and all? It's
the Fab India aesthetic.
yeah, journalist out of college aesthetic.
Yeah.
Also very gay.
Also very gay. So I remember that when growing up reading about men in the US used to put hankies in their
Back pockets. Yeah, right hand was supposed to be something and left.
I could
left
never
side
remember,
was-
which is why I'm still single, clearly.
I never put hankies because it would draw attention to my flat bum.
Me too,
on the
actually.
back.
So we don't really highlight those areas, right? Yeah. But it was alien then to even wear certain colors as a man. You couldn't wear pink.
For sure.
It was,
Yeah.
I think...
I can't imagine yellow, pink.
It was, I think, Miami Vice, the show. I don't even know if you remember
Of
that.
course.
And Don Johnson
Of
wearing all
course.
those pastel
Yeah.
colors and light
lilac oversized
sorbet.
suits and everything. Yeah.
That kind of bought
What a
those
vibe.
colors. Yeah. Superb. I must have been about 10. So I'm going to tell you this experience because we were chatting about this earlier. But I must have been about 10 and I went to a shoot with my mum. And she was producing a ad film which was cosmetics. It was called Max Factor. And there were two very obviously gay and out model dancer men. One was Dodo Bhujwala, who's still around. And one was Ritesh Haldar, who's also a very successful architect now. And Dodo was wearing a earring, and on the earring there was a piece of car tire that was hanging for some reason. I mean, he used to make his own earrings, and he had makeup, and he was wearing these tiny little disco satin shorts and this loose gunji. and prancing around and being very gay. And I could
Where that
see-
voodoo in Kolaba?
No, much before. I was 10. Thank you for thinking. I was 10 in
Oh, how
Voodoo Elton. I love
sweet.
you. I was 40 then. No, not 40. 20 something. So this was when I was little 10-year-old. And I could see all the light dadas and all on the set sniggering and kind of making
Yeah,
comments.
I can imagine.
And it made me very uncomfortable because
Mm.
I knew I was like them, but I did not want to be them.
Mm.
Because I didn't like the way. And that kind of intimidated me.
Yeah, puts you in a box.
Yeah. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever?
Yeah, still.
Yeah.
But I think our coping mechanism develops to the point where you can it becomes part of your nature to shuck it.
Ignore it.
Yeah, to the side and just
You still get
sweep
it?
on the. Yeah.
Even in your fashion world?
Yeah. Yeah, film sets. Or
That's
whatever.
bizarre.
It could be, it may not be as verbal or as obvious, but
In the look and
you
the
understand when it's like I think like women compared to men are more self-aware and they're more aware of what's happening around them, and so much as they're always looking over their shoulders, just making sure. It's just a natural reflex, and hetero men just don't get it on why they need to be they need to look out constantly or be like a bit anxious about who's coming from what angle, how close, what am I wearing, is my dupatta
Right,
off, is
my cleavage, yeah.
all of that. And I think queers also share that because you've been gay bashed or and I have.
Yeah,
most
I
certainly,
have. We all have,
so
unfortunately.
it's that someone's speeding towards you a little, or someone's following you. There's a phone in your pointed at you from somewhere around your peripheral vision. You just know, you're more aware. So I'm just more aware, and I choose to ignore a lot of it.
Yeah, it doesn't bother you.
It doesn't
as much
bother me anymore because I feel like people's lacking intelligence cannot be my problem.
Absolutely. And you can't restrict yourself just because.
And it's not my job to bring Janta up to speed. I'm here to maintain my own
And to live.
journey. Yeah,
And to do my thing.
that's it.
But were you always so brave about it?
Not always. It builds from the trauma. That's
Right.
why I always say I never say that I feel like a victim. Oh, I feel so sorry, or like, oh, I hate you for doing this. No, wait, thanks. But I am, I've got this war paint on thanks to you.
Right.
So
All part of my
you're
journey.
still stuck where you were.
Yeah. Because like if I think back to you maybe 11, 12 years ago when we worked together, you didn't present as queerly.
Not at
perhaps.
all, yeah.
I think your aesthetic has gotten more
And
refined.
I was a small town boy. I came here from Hyderabad. I didn't know how to navigate social spaces. Forget.
There was nothing small town about you.
No, for me there
You were
was
very
in my
cool.
head. That's only because I was English speaking, raised anglicized. It's like so it made things easy.
Right.
But in my head, I still had the insecurities of a small town.
Right. So how did you get into makeup? Considering that you were not in Bombay and it was not like a mecca of,
Yeah. It wasn't completely alien to me because my mother was very well groomed growing up. And
how
I could
many gay
just-
boys say it comes from mummy?
Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
we don't even have a functional relationship.
Oh.
But I do I feel love and respect for her,
course.
of course. And I used to always enjoy watching her just like put on her red lips or brush her hair, and because she really dressed well, whether it was red lips or permed hair or high heels, going out jiving.
Wow.
And before we were born, my brother and they would clear the dance floor for my mum when she would jive. So one of those
Right.
spirited young Bombay girls.
Right.
So it was empowering to grow up with a woman like that.
Do you remember any times growing up where you saw somebody queer and what impression that made
Hell
on
yeah.
you?
Oh my God. For me, my icons were Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince,
Right.
or Madonna,
Right.
Like a Virgin. I remember asking my mum, I used to sing that song, and I said, "What's a virgin?" And she said, "An unmarried woman."
Right.
She lied.
Yeah, she lied.
So there were two teachers in my school, and I don't really talk about them often. I mean, I don't know why I thought about it, but this was in Thane, St. John's, and we had two teachers that were really famous and very beautiful that everybody loved. One was Specie teacher, Speciosa de Souza,
Wow.
and one was Ida. But I love them because she would come with this hair behind the ears, loose braid at the back, whether it was a sari, whether it was pants, whatever. and big glasses, like square and big, like really big, covering
Right.
50% of her face,
Right.
kind of big. And it was so queer with the thick
Frames.
lenses.
Oh,
The lenses
which is
itself.
very happening now.
Yeah, but it's like what we call Dammarudam type of vibe then.
Right. Oh,
but
like
it
a
was so
70s
trendy to come into school like that and teach us. And Ida teacher would often not wear a bra. So
No
it
wonder
was
she was so
really
popular.
beautiful. I remember just looking at that form and thinking, wow, not in a sexual way, I was a child, but you just learn to appreciate form and silhouette.
And men? Do you ever remember?
So boring for the most part.
Yeah, that's
but,
true. Sadly.
I'd say in real life, maybe my own family, I had some trendy, uncles, but it wasn't queer, but it was cute.
Yeah.
Bell bots, you know.
Hip.
Yeah,
Right.
bell bots or that pants so high that you know which side the motor is on. Like the old, my father used to joke and say, "Oh God, look at him with his old Vespa model," because the whole engine is on one side of the.
So are we trailblazers? What's the stereotype about gay men being fashionistas? Where do you think that comes from?
Trauma, like everything else.
Really?
But it really is true. Everything in life comes from trauma.
Yeah, that's true.
The greatest things could come from trauma. But and I think it's a community, not just gay men, whole community, trans people more than anything. But you hold on to these little things that give you meaning, or that you can find some sort of a likeness or a purpose.
To it.
Yeah.
So there's a quote. Queerness in general has become more accepted by the mainstream, and I think fashion always came from queerness.
Fashion is quite queer.
Fashion is queer, of course.
I mean, look at everybody keeping the business alive. So whether you think of great artists, great architects, great anything to do with visual arts, imagination. Today we are everywhere. We're in the military. We're in sports. We're in business everywhere. But our brains were more left aligned. What is it called? Aligned or whatever back in the day, and we excelled in those spaces because this is where we found more community,
An expression.
and freedom.
And I
Agency
guess a
over
safe
ourselves.
space in some
Safe
ways.
space,
right?
like Mumbai is to all of us. Why do we
Right.
all? So I was speaking to Saurabh. I don't know if you know his music. Fantastic, sophisticated musician, Nicholson. He's got
Right, yes.
So we go back to so many years ago where we met in Hyderabad, and discussing with him, it's like, how did we all end up here? It's like because we're all rejects in our own cities, in our own old spaces, and then we come together and we all find other freaks like ourselves over here.
Yeah.
And
Find
you
your
suddenly
tribe.
realize that this world is not as insular or close-minded as we thought it was, and we are not alone. But I understand that life has sped up because of virtual world, internet, mobile phone,
Right.
all of this. So we have access to these points of conversation. But back in the day when you didn't, and you didn't have access to a newspaper that covered articles or anything mass like that,
Right.
where do you get these signals from? So I suppose that ring makes a statement.
Yeah, of course.
So much more value. But
But that's interesting, your idea about cities being enablers. And that's true.
Urban
Cities and
tier one
professions.
cities, yeah.
Because you meet a lot of queer kids who leave their hometowns and come to Bombay
Absolutely.
and then start living their queer lives.
And also, I realized this earlier on in life. I realized that if you wanted to feel less triggered, you just have to earn more money and live in a nicer place. Like people always ask, why do you choose to live in here in Bandra West? And I say, because it just reduces all of these microaggressions of everyday life. Someone calling me good when I'm downstairs. Someone saying, hey Vijay, Andy, hey Bailya, whatever. I don't want all of this shit.
Right.
I want to get up in the morning, feel motivated, do my job, come home, have a laugh, have a good fuck, and go to bed. It's like, so I don't want triggers
Right.
every step of the day.
Yeah, of course not.
So, and I get that from spaces where people are well traveled, where they're so busy with their own, keeping their own boat afloat, that they're
Right.
not bothered with what you're doing.
Right.
And they can hold space for you. So
It's
that's
kind
in
of
these
sad
cities.
to hear even somebody like you who's at the top of their game and who's like owning it and all that has to put up with triggers all the time. That's
All
like
the
a bit-
time, of course. You just choose to not be bothered or activated by it sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's never meant to be fair, yeah. And I think
Yeah,
it's
that's
cool.
true. Who said life's fair?
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, so I'm in desperate need, as you can see, of updating my wardrobe and keeping up with queer trends. So, what do you see as queer trends currently?
What I love about Gen Z's aesthetic today
Yeah.
is they have taken something that is old, again, created within boxes at some point,
Right.
which was, say, for example, gym wear, athleisure, innerwear,
Okay. As outerwear.
and bring it out to the front.
Yeah, that's fab.
So
that
I
is
love
subversive.
looking at this.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, you remember Kata Laga, whatever that song?
Yeah.
She comes with that
Shifali,
thong.
whatever, yeah.
It was sexy. I mean, she
Yeah.
might have made it look tacky, but it was really sexy and hard.
Of course, it was sexy.
That blue thong, if I'm not even mistaken.
Glittery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But today it's so relevant and so cool,
Yeah.
and it really looks great.
Yeah.
Wearing everything, and even their makeup, for instance, it's taking from the olden times, but using lesser, and you can see so much of skin spaces coming through in between all of this heaviness on the face.
Right.
There are some bits that don't have anything, so it's like give and take into certain parts. I quite like it. I love the aesthetic today. Because our time, the 90s, 2000s, were great for music,
Yeah.
but fashion
Oh, God,
was
yeah.
ghastly at
Yeah,
one point. We just didn't know where we were going with it.
I mean, 80s fashion was frightening.
Frightening, but they've taken that and made it cool.
And made it cool, you're right. So apparently, queer trends for the year are jorts. Do you know what jorts are?
Jeans, shorts.
Jean shorts. Well done. So any type, loose, slouchy, tiny, high-waisted, ass crack showers, but jorts. I have a pair of jorts. Do you have jorts?
No.
You don't?
Not my vibe.
I bought jorts not knowing that they were so trendy.
Oh.
A dad shirt apparently has a queer vibe. Dad shirts are
Like a
queer.
big shirt.
Yeah, like a big
oversized shirt. I wouldn't say dad
Yeah.
shirt.
Okay. Flamboyant accessories like sunglasses with shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see. Sheer mesh tops.
Love those. I have many.
Yeah. I remember them
Hosiery
well.
stuff.
Yeah, I remember them well, but now these moves that I have, they don't allow for...
Knits. Why? The nipple could peek through the gap and...
yeah, but that's a bit embarrassing, no? At my age, like my nipples showing through my mesh.
Why? Not if there was a trickle of milk every now and then.
Loud pattern suits. Here we come back to Ranveer Singh land.
Yeah. I mean, anything that screams, look at me is a loud thing, I guess.
Yeah. A vegan leather body harness.
Vegan leather, why?
Because you have to be politically correct, nah? You can't be leather.
Oh, come on. We all wear shoes and...
Of course. But I have to say, I do find leather harnesses quite sexy.
Yeah, my
And I
ex
know
has a
you wear
line
them.
now.
Oh, really? What's it called?
Leather subculture.
Wow, he's created his own line.
In Jaipur. Yeah, it's doing very well.
I have seen you in pictures with a harness, like
Yeah,
a simple
bought that from him.
harness. Beautiful. Very sexy. So I can get one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Online. Ships from Jaipur.
Smoking jacket and satin shorts.
What's a smoking jacket?
I think those old style men's tweedy kind of jackets. I think this is
Cute.
a lesbian thing.
Vintagey.
With satin shorts.
Yeah, leave it to the lesbians.
Leave it to the lesbians. So tell me, when growing up, what were your high fashion moments?
What I particularly remember is having these really, really heavily tailored Pochampalli and Kalamkari textile shirts.
Shirts.
And they were narrow sleeves, but double the size of width of a cuff.
The cuff, okay.
And the collar was high and big.
Okay.
Hardened
Kind
with
of
like
new
double
romantic.
fusing.
New romantic.
Yeah, but it's just all over the place. Because, you know, look, doing that in a white like Lagerfeld would keep it nice and crisp and classy. But I was so
Printy.
print heavy. I had a big buckle belt that said not FCUK, it said FUCK.
Ooh, that's transgressive.
And I was very bold. I used to wear it everywhere and it was so huge and silver,
Where did
big
you get that
lettering.
from?
Some store in Hyderabad.
Wow.
Big leather and then this metal FUCK. And my mother used to be so offended by it.
Obviously.
And then I had pointy shoes, of course, under the
I love
denims.
those. Which apparently
right?
are called brothel creepers.
Well, there
That's
you go.
my mum told me that.
She
because
started young.
I bought a pair at some market in London, Camden Market, like a vintage pair, and she was like, "Oh, brothel creepers, are they back?" But they were beautiful, like pointy
Well,
ones.
heels were made originally for the hookers, weren't they?
For the men,
right?
high heels were for the men.
So go for it.
Yeah. My high fashion moment, and I have to say this
Go for
because I still live with those memories, was the voodoo days, which is what you were talking about. And I bought a pair of impossibly tiny silver shorts, which I would wear. I don't know how.
All about the bum hanging out.
No bum.
Then?
Just like little shorts and prancing
cute.
on the tables and all. It was very... and fortunately, that was 96. So the trend was Shah Rukh Khan's tight lycra, Dil To Pagal Hai t-shirt. Do you remember that one? Blue and green.
Yes.
I forget what was written on it.
Even I don't. But I remember Karishma in it.
And then everybody was wearing these tight lycra kind of t-shirts. Yeah.
Lyra. Today
Yeah.
you should see these Lyra
Yeah,
ads are so ugly.
and like shiny and pokey and sheeny and sheery and all, but it was fun.
Fun.
Yeah. At least it was like bodycon.
And you used to show midriff and all.
Midriff, not really legs.
Okay.
Yeah. Midriff, nahi.
Yeah. So today they show more then.
Today they show midriff, yeah.
Yeah.
Crop tops are very happy.
Big on midriff.
Yeah.
I like.
And for men
And also when you're young and that's the most youthful and athletic you'll ever look.
Yeah.
Show off your best bits. Yeah, sure.
That's true. We didn't have makeup at all. Boys didn't wear
Sadly.
makeup. Maybe a little bit of eyeliner if you were really pushy, like pushing the envelope.
So when I was going out in my college and after days, when I was getting gay bashed in Hyderabad, I would go out with a full smoky eye. And I don't mean black. I would do green, glitter, blue. Yeah.
Where did
That's how they identified us in the streets,
How
I
did
guess.
that come to be?
I really liked wearing makeup.
And you were still living at home in those days?
Yeah, but we would get ready in my friend's house.
Of
either,
course.
And all
Like
of us
hookers
queens going
do,
out
yeah.
together. Yeah, then they pay.
Yeah. And you'd wear like a full green
Full,
glitter
like a
smoky
mint,
eye?
not even like a classic Rani Mukherjee or anything like that, shapely, almondy. No, it was just a round, just so that it's koala like, but cool and sparkly in the lights of the club.
And then get bashed.
Well, not always.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's some nights would
Yeah.
be involve some of this nonsense.
So you made the
attention.
transition quite quickly into being like pushing the envelope.
Yeah, second nature to me.
Always there.
Yeah.
Rebellion.
Yeah.
So do you know about this term queer baiting?
Yes.
Okay. So for the uninformed, it's a marketing tactic that leads fans into falsely believing that celebrities or fictional characters are LGBTQ plus because of the way they dress or interact.
Yes.
Like Rainbow Pride merch, it's often a disingenuous approach and appeal to queer communities that doesn't actually involve doing anything to represent or uplift to them.
Yeah, and you'll see that happening now, incoming Pride Month in June.
Oh God, yes. Where
Gosh.
everything will be a
They're
rainbow.
all going to write to us and say, oh, we want to do this and that, but FOC, free of cost.
And it has to be rainbow, just in case you didn't get the memo. So the whole monetizing rainbow merch. So rainbows have been a symbol of our rights
Yes.
ever since the first rainbow flag was flown in 1978.
Yes.
But there's this whole thing called rainbow capitalism, which
Yes.
is like using how LGBTQ liberation is monetized and used for social
Appropriating
capital.
our culture and yes, furthering that. Yeah.
Right. So there's a practice of pumping out rainbow products during Pride Month and donating 1/1,000,000th of the proceeds, which creates just like slacktivism. Do you face that as in terms of the job that you do? Like coming June, now there'll be all this. Oh, Elton,
No,
please.
not me, but I'm cognizant of it happening around.
And you see it happening.
Yeah, for sure, especially with my friends doing drag
Right.
professionally. Sure. A lot of people, even in our entertainment worlds, Bollywood and stuff, who are making content that want to include some sort of a queer,
Context or
Yeah.
agenda.
but they ultimately pitch an idea to you, and it comes with such a sense of entitlement because they feel like, oh, we are giving your messaging a voice and a platform, so of course it's FOC.
Oh,
And you should be
grateful.
grateful.
wow.
So I don't take well to that at all. That's a big trigger.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm sure.
yeah,
and why
I
should
burn
you?
bridges because of it. Even Luna, I can say, we discuss all of these things, right? But it happens all the time. And how come your allyship only decides to surface in June?
Right, in May.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing me up to par on fashion and style and everything. Thank you for your time and thoughts. I wish you so much luck and love and joy. And I can't wait. I know I'm being like a pushy mother, but I can't wait for you to do more. You need
Transition,
to
you
do
mean?
more. No, not transition. You're very.
My pronouns are he, him.
Your pronouns are he, him. I know that. No,
Or
but I'm just
she,
saying, like,
I respond to
like what's
anything.
going to happen after makeup? Like, I'm really excited about that part of Elton.
I don't know. Maybe go back to what I really wanted to do in life, which is singing.
Oh, really?
Or being a songwriter, maybe. I don't know.
Is that
Those are-
where you started the journey?
That was my childhood dream, to be a singer-songwriter. Yeah, I really enjoy singing because I feel. And I regret not learning to play an instrument younger.
It's not too late.
True, but I have so much of attention issues right now with my span. I think these reels and these quick things have ruined it, I just can't sit through something for
But
long.
apparently learning an instrument as you grow older is the best thing for
Yeah?
you and your mind. Yeah. It's apparently a really good thing you can do for your
Yeah,
brain.
'cause music
So
can
you
really
should.
heal
And you're in the
spaces.
Bandra, you'll find
It's true.
guitar teachers and piano teachers.
I have
and
so many
there's
musician friends.
Well, good luck with that. I look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thanks for
thank you
having me, guys,
again.
and thanks for
Thank you,
listening.
Thank you.
You were listening to The Queer Podcast, hosted by Ashish Soni. Produced by Audiomatic. Producers for Audiomatic, Akanksha Kadam and Avdoot Khanulkar. Assistant producer, Nitesh Zuvade. Original title track by Srijit Vijayan. Sound design, mix and master by Team Audiomatic. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guest and do not reflect the policy or position of any organization, entity, or platform. This podcast is not intended to harm, defame, or offend any individual, group, or organization, and any references made to persons, living or deceased, are purely coincidental and not intended to be taken as factual statements. Listener discretion is advised.